Hello, Andy. Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. How's it going?
Good, good.
Yeah, good. Haven't seen you for a while.
Yeah,
Thanks for coming today.
well, hope we can do some good.
Definitely. Len, good. You've made it. Are you on a train or what?
No, I'm still sitting in the train station, so I'm going to be coming in and out. I think probably turn my video off just because I don't know how well I'm going to do here with this Wi-Fi.
No problem, Len. I will make up for your slackness. Good. We have a project member here, or project owner, Andrew Pecklow, is going to speak just very briefly in the public comment period. Good morning or afternoon, Eric. How are you?
Hey, good, good. Nice to see everybody.
Yes. It's funny, I gave a testimony yesterday on that bill. It's the placeholder bill. And I thought I was going to be able to do it on my phone because I was driving and everything, traveling around Connecticut. But all of a sudden they told me, Duncan, you got to do it on Zoom. We can't do telephones. So I said, where am I? And they said they got four people before me. So I got to the site and that I was going to the Dayville Hydro site. And I ran to the powerhouse. I opened up my laptop and it was my turn right there and then. So trying to catch my breath, I said my thing, but it all went very well. And, um, everybody was very receptive of what I had to say about Hydro on behalf of CSPPA.
That's great. Oh, glad you're able to participate.
All right, good. So maybe we're waiting for a couple more here. Mhm.
Laura won't be joining us.
Okay, right. Well, maybe I need to look at the arrow to the right. Good morning. Hello, Charlie. How are you?
Right.
Good. Um, well, let me just see who we might be missing.
Assume that Mariana was joining. Oh, she's joining right now.
Okay, good. Hi, Mariana. Welcome. All
Hello,
right. I think
everybody.
welcome. All right, very good. Start off with comments here. So SB 382, they're calling it a placeholder, and hopefully that will be what the legislation modifies to accommodate things that they want to accommodate from the study that we're going to be submitting, or hopefully we're submitting that study this week, or rather next week. Ideally, it will be before their meeting on March 21st, which is coming right up. But definitely before JF, that's a joint favorable, means that they need to get everything out by March 26th. So it'd be great if we can move expeditiously on getting that study out. Um, like I said yesterday, I gave testimony on Zoom, and Representative Steinberg was very receptive and looking forward to getting our study and very positive, talking about everything that we're doing. Our next meeting is Monday at 3 o'clock. All right, good. So it looks like we have some members of the public. This is your time to talk if you would like, and please keep it brief. And Andrew, I'll go with you first. Welcome.
Okay.
Andrew is just an introduction. Andrew owns a project on the Pomperog, and he's been working on trying to get this project online for a number of years now. So we can call this an unpowered dam, right? Andrew's maybe the only person, at least that I know out there, that's trying to get an unpowered dam online. And you have a license, I believe, Andrew, and you've had obstacles. You've gotten Z-Rex, then you lost them, and things happen here and there to cause delay. But I'll let you run the show and tell us about your experience there.
Well, I'm an architect and a woodworker, and I live in an old mill on the Pomperog about 1835. Actually met, when I first moved in 1980, actually met a man who made power here probably 100 years ago, and had some interesting input. So as long ago as the early 80s, I was interested in pursuing this, and maybe around 2010, I got serious and applied for a license, and went through a very troublesome process with FERC, and deep, but everything seemed to work out, and I got a license, and it's a 95 kilowatt project, estimated to produce a little over 400,000 kilowatts a year, which is somewhere around 50 houses worth. And so now the issue is how to fund it and be able to build it. And the way as Duncan mentioned, I had a rec contract, which would have helped, but FERC held me up for a couple of years, so I lost that. So now I'm trying to figure out if there's a way of funding a project of this size so that I can make a positive impact on renewable energy and clean energy. So the way it stands now, there's no guarantee. It's very difficult to get purchase power agreements. There's always some little hook for every program that's out there, instead of just saying, my last bill, Eversource, I was paying 15 cents. That wouldn't be a bad way to, whatever Eversource is paying for energy out there, why isn't anybody allowed to get that rate? In any case, so that's whatever can be done to make it portable and for small hydro. I mean, all the environmental issues were resolved, so which really weren't many. So whatever helped this group and the legislature could do would be very helpful to simplify not only me, but there's a lot of people out there who have these small little places that don't, would love to get involved if it wasn't such a ordeal. So.
Okay, Andy, very good for that.
Got any questions? You ask me.
Right. I know you're trying to secure good rates, and maybe class 1 RECs is ideally what you would like to have. It sounds like you did have Z-RECs, but you were delayed. You went beyond a certain period and you lost that, right?
Right.
Because it took you so long to get everything together. But you're pretty much ready to go now with your FERC license and so on. You have a deadline for that you got to watch out for. You have to start construction by a certain date, and they need real proof that you started. So we understand your situation, I think, and we're doing our best to help out projects like you, I think. Okay. Well,
Okay.
thanks
Well,
for
thank
coming
you.
and sharing that.
So Duncan, you may not be able to see it, but I just put a hand up. I'm curious.
Okay,
A couple questions of Andrew. Just so you know, Andrew, and I don't know if you saw any of the recordings from previous meetings, but a lot of the types of projects that we've talked about are, run of river and have kind of fish passage, either requirements or issues to address, and flow issues. And I'm just curious if you might touch on, and any of those that you've been able to do with your project, or if you were to get a more preferential pricing, if there are things that you would like to do that you haven't yet been able to do.
Well, I'd like to get preferential pricing so that I can do it. As far as it is a run of river project, there are designs for a fish passage and eel passage. So all those things mount up. So, you know, it's difficult to understand how they expect people to contribute clean energy when they make it so difficult.
And so, Andrew, I'm sorry, if I just help me, by clarifying this a little bit. So right now, are you able to offer fish passage or eel passage, or you have designs that you would like to be able to do that, but haven't been able to afford it?
Well, it's already been designed in both cases, but you know, there are issues with the expense. I mean, it's not easy. On my site, it could end up costing it as much as the project itself. So, I mean, and the fact that there's, let's see, 2 or 3 dams between me and the ocean that don't have fish passage, it seems a little kind of odd that they would be hold me responsible for moving fish that aren't there. So, but that's, I have had discussions, and there are plenty of designs on the table that could be built.
Okay, thank you. I know we have a lot to get through today, but I really appreciate your comments.
Very good, Andy. Thank you. Charlie, go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Charlie's an avid hydro developer out of Putnam, Connecticut, and you have owned several sites around, including a site in Rhode Island and so on. And right now, you want to maintain, Putnam Hydro. Go ahead.
Right. My name is Charlie Rosenfield. I operate Putnam Hydropower, which is a 600 kilowatt site in Putnam. And it's a good example of a lot of the issues that I think need to be addressed with hydro in Connecticut. We were the first low impact Hydro Institute project certified in New England, yet we are not eligible for the Connecticut RPS. We are selling RECs into Massachusetts and selling RECs into Rhode Island because we're ineligible in Connecticut. We're selling power at 2 to 3 cents a kilowatt hour. And we've been incrementally improving the project, but these things do take continued investment. And at 2 to 3 cents, it's very hard to continue with incremental improvements. So I think that this is an example. This project, which is environmentally sound, has been here for a long time. It's good policy to support these things, and I'm hopeful the task force will do that.
Charlie, similarly, do you have any plans, or is it written in your license, or do you know the status of installing fish passage facilities at your site there?
Where we are in Putnam is above the DEP's anadromous fish line, but we have voluntarily installed an eel passage and do for upstream passage and do downstream eel passage in the fall as voluntarily as part of the low impact hydro certification.
Very good.
And Charlie, can you just mention why you weren't eligible for Class 1?
Because we have been operating for a long time. So we were operating the right way and are essentially punished for that. Where others and other states, we're eligible for. In New England, it's really a bizarre situation that located in Connecticut. Connecticut is buying RECs from out of state projects to support its RPS, and here we have a poster child project located in Connecticut that's ineligible. It's bizarre.
Because you're put online before July 1st, 2003, or whatever that is, right?
Right.
The way the Class 1 definition is
Well,
defined
projects
right
that
now.
were online well before that date have been able to get certified, but that's a divergent story.
Okay.
But I'd be happy to answer questions. And we are happy if anyone ever would like to see one of these projects, we are always happy to show it.
All right, Charlie, very good.
Duncan, I have a question for Charles. This is Steve Cadwallader from Pura. I was wondering, you said you were selling into other states. What kind of recs or value are you getting from these other states that you're not able to get in Connecticut?
Well, we're selling both the Massachusetts and Rhode Island RPS. They also have a cutoff date similar to not the same date, but a date. But they have accepted incremental efficiency and capacity improvements. So I think we're 9% in Massachusetts and 28% in Rhode Island from some incremental improvements that we've made. And then the balance we're selling is class 2 into Rhode Island, which is about a 3-cent rec. Into Massachusetts, I'm sorry.
Great,
So we're
thanks.
selling class 1 and class 2 in Rhode Island and Massachusetts, and class 2 in Massachusetts for 100% of our output.
Good. Thank you, Charles.
Charlie, you a license or an exemption?
We have a FERC exemption.
Right. But reading class 1 definition for Connecticut, you know, Roman numeral 1 is a run-of-river facility that began operation after July 1st, 2003. Well, you were put online before July 1st, 2003, therefore you're not eligible, the way I read it.
Correct.
I mean, Roman numeral 2 is received a
And
new license
we were,
after.
at one time, we were eligible for the Connecticut class 2 rec, which was considerably less valuable. But then they removed all hydro from the Connecticut class 2 rec to make room for fossil fueled fuel cells. So
I noticed that I get a letter in the mail saying all of a sudden you're not eligible for class 2 anymore. By the way,
that was a less desirable program, and these other programs were in or better. But it's again that it just seemed bizarre policy to me.
Okay, very good. Any other questions for Charlie? All right, Charlie. Well, thank you very much for that. All right, so moving along on our agenda here. So what we public comments discussion now we have discussion on industry subcommittee report sections. So that would be first part would be existing environment and challenges section. It also includes the benefits section. That's Roman numeral 2 and Roman numeral 3 of our outline. So I'd like to try to get that up here on the screen.
So Duncan, I just wanted to raise one issue with that. I mean, I know in reading through the draft that was shared, I know that Laura, who's not here today, had several kind of questions that I think she needs to be a part of the conversation to try to resolve. So I don't know how much value there's going to be in going through this today without her participating. I just want to raise that issue at the beginning. But I don't know if others have a similar feeling about that.
All right, understood. However, we have to keep moving along. We do have, we can't say that for every section that we're trying to look at today. Benefits, drawbacks, policy considerations, everything. I did ask everybody at the last meeting to please provide your comments before the next meeting. And, the written comments are as good as verbal comments today. Laura did provide comments extensively prior to even the last meeting. And, I put in my answers to a lot of her concerns. And then at the top, I said, Laura, I hope that this takes care of things. Haven't heard back from Laura then, but, I don't we have another meeting on Monday. I was hoping to get everything in kind of good shape, not to say that's it, that's finalized. I do respect Laura's final say before we give a final on these documents, but I think that it'd be good to just whip through them today and kind of get it down to, reduce some of our notes there and clean them up and just get them ready for final on Monday might be a good way to go.
Well, Duncan, just mentioning, and again, you may not be able to see this, but Len has a hand up and might have thoughts on this.
Oh, sure. Go ahead, Len. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks. I'm sorry about not having my camera on, but just to comment on this, I think maybe one of the ways forward today to get through as much as we can I agree with Eric in terms of addressing Laura's issues. I think without her would be contradictory to our charge. I do, however, think we could probably go through other people's comments, and admittedly, my limitations, I can't see the document right now. But nevertheless, if there are other comments and questions, maybe we can go through those today, and then I think importantly get to the considerations and just kind of hear back from everybody as well. It may be a little bit of a truncated meeting to a degree because I think Laura's comments were probably more extensive than others, but nevertheless, maybe we can kind of go through that, address everybody else's issues to the degree that we can, and then ideally Laura can we can go through her issues on Monday if that works for everybody else.
Yeah, I know. I know. I'd feel much more comfortable with that. Obviously, the hope is that at the end of the end of this process, we'll all feel like all of those questions and concerns have been raised appropriately, addressed appropriately, and we can find as much consensus as possible. So, anyway, I appreciate that, Lynn and Duncan.
Okay, good. So let's take a look at Roman numeral 2 of our outline, existing environment and challenges. And that document also happens to include Roman numeral 3, benefits. So if somebody can help me get this up on the screen, how do I do that?
Duncan, do you see? Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to offer, I don't know if everyone is able to share, but I have it up on my screen. I could share it that way and you just walk through it.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Eric. There it is. All right, so let's go through this quickly. A first comment by Laura, she says she hasn't given the document deep dive yet, but she has some concerns. So I say, please see responses below, and hopefully that takes care of things. But we'll see what Laura has to say about that when hopefully she's back on Monday. So Lynn indicated remove these 3 paragraphs. First 3 paragraphs, Lynn talked about removing. I had those in there to give a basic background and to, tell everybody, hey, we got projects out there that are living off of the LNP at 3 cents. Well, what Lynn indicated is, well, we kind of cover that down below. That's fine. I mean, I'm okay with getting rid of them if we want to. Does anybody have any comments on keeping or removing these 3 red paragraphs?
I mean, I think if we do get into it down below, I'm fine with removing them to just get right into the existing environment piece.
Right. Okay, so let's say the 3 red ones are gone, but then we keep this one here called existing environment. So it talks about how many projects there are. I think those are our current numbers that are standard across the board. And then a project's potential have been abandoned. And then it lists the projects. I did, if you scroll down a little bit more, please, Eric, I did fix Andy's project, coincidentally, a little bit further down there, Pomperog, see that one? About 8 up, there it is. So I put a 0 where it was a 76 because it's not running yet, so it's a 0. Oh, I got to take out the word operating over there. There's another thing we got to do. So is it possible if you had edit it as we speak here, Eric, and take out the word operating and put, very good. It does it. All right, so let's keep moving along.
Duncan, one question here. Are we appropriately citing where this information is coming from?
Maybe not. So John came up with this. I don't think you're not with us today, right, John?
I don't see him on now.
No.
So I will get the citing from John. I did kind of check it over and it seems to be in line with my records also, but I'll get John to provide the citing.
Holbrook was fully decommissioned in 2019 and is not operating.
So, I'm sorry, which project was that?
Holbrook. I actually just checked on that because someone asked me if it was fully decommissioned. Then I checked the FERC records, and as of 2019, it was, and their license was surrendered.
Colebrook?
Yes, Colbrook.
Okay, yep. Yep, this is true. So it says in decommissioning. What should we say there? Just say not operating?
Well, I mean, it's decommissioned. Are we including decommissioned on this list? Because if it is decommissioned, then
Yeah, right. I mean, we have not operating and we have in decommissioning. I don't really know what the difference is between the two, decommissioning, not operating.
I would say
why
that
are
if it's
why are
if
we
it's already been
including projects
decommissioned,
that
maybe we
aren't
just pull it out.
operating?
Okay, so let me answer the question. Why are they even included? You can see my response down there. You click on Duncan's response to that question. There we go. And we put them up here to show that the lack of programs in Connecticut perhaps caused the economic demise of some of these, and maybe some of these projects that had been taken offline deserve to be put back online. That's a good reason to keep on the list, maybe.
Well, I think this is one of those issues that maybe we need to have, Laura to be a part of the conversation too. I think at a previous meeting, we had talked about not including those, but at the very least, it needs to be made more clear when you're looking, at the entire list and looking at what it totals, that there need to be, it needs to be really clear that that total isn't actually that total, because there are some, a couple that are decommissioned, for example. But I see Len's got a hand up.
Go ahead, Len.
Yep, thanks. Yeah, just to kind of reiterate what Eric just said, I think this does go to the heart of what we were discussing last week, with regards to the environmental NGO sections that were added. So it may make sense for us to include this in that conversation with Laura, just to make sure that we're covering the bases. And I know that there was some disagreement between yourself, Duncan, and Laura. So obviously, without her here, I think maybe we make a note of this as being something that needs to be covered more extensively with her, whether it's at the meeting on Monday or even offline, to try to see if there's a path forward with regard to this language, and also some of the other language that we talked about last week.
Right, sure, we will. Alicia, what's wrong with putting him here just for informational purposes?
Well, I think that if you read the paragraph above, I think that if you want to include the 8 megawatts that have been recently decommissioned, I almost feel like they need to be in a separate table, right? So having one table with the currently generating that you have quoted, the 152 megawatts, and then the 8 projects with a combined 8 megawatt capacity. I feel like putting them all into one table, it's just confusing.
Right, understood. All right, I'm going to say right off the bat, let's make 2 tables, and then let's see if there's any more discussion we need to do after making 1 table into 2.
But I think it's also important that we not include projects that have been recently decommissioned but aren't feasible going forward, like Kittytown.
Well, you don't want to include projects that have been recently decommissioned and are not feasible to go forward, like Colebrook?
Right.
Or,
like Kittytown.
Oh yeah, I'll agree with that. That's on a list of projects where dams to be removed, right?
Yes, correct.
Right. Agreed on that. Maybe that's yet another table, but we'll definitely put those way to the side. Okay, are there any others besides Kinneytown? Well, actually, there's your list, Alicia, that you provided good detail on that talks more about these. So I'll work on coming up with better lists, plural, on these and keep them separate. Okay. All right, where are we? Okay.
So I'm happy to scroll just,
Yeah, good. Is it okay removing that paragraph? Okay, next.
sure.
Just put those 3.7 cents in bold. And then we just have some graphs and so on.
So this is $37.69 per megawatt. Okay, got it.
I'm sorry, Duncan, can you, or Eric, I guess it's you. Can you go up to that chart there? I think one of the things that came out in our discussions that should be added here, and I'm sorry, my comments are not in this document yet, is that net metering, what's mentioned there is net metering. I think that's virtual net metering. Which is not the same as net metering. So maybe if you could add a comment there for John to confirm if that's the case or if we just want to add it. But I think that's what this is referring to here.
Okay, very good. I'll ask John. Okay. Okay, next. I just talk about how I put this challenges section in this existing section. It used to be separate. I just put it in the same because it's kind of similar.
I think it fits just fine there. If anyone else has thoughts.
I think if I recall, I might have made a comment with regard to just the placing of the different sections. I think there's the benefits section is actually below this right now. I think my recommendation was to actually move that more to the front of this, but I admittedly can't fully recall everything I wrote.
Yeah, I think
day.
that's
Okay.
Coming
that's
up.
right. Yep.
Okay.
Coming up.
So there was down in the last section there, just as Len was saying, that the section 3 could fit nicely before the challenges section. Len, do you want to talk about the rationale for that?
Yeah, it was pretty straightforward. It just seemed from a flow perspective, and it made more sense to me to almost set up, okay, why are we worried about this? What do we actually get out of hydro versus going into the challenges first and then talking about why it matters. I think just honestly, it's more subjective, I think, in this case from my perspective, but happy to listen to what other people think.
All right, that's fine. That would mean we'd have to go back to having a separate section for challenges. So, and that's okay with me. I don't care. So we would have existing Roman numeral 2, challenges Roman numeral 3, benefits. Wait a minute.
Benefits
Existing Roman
would be
numeral 2, challenges Roman numeral 3, and benefits Roman numeral 4, right?
Just to make sure of this, Len, were you also thinking that benefits should come above existing, even if the hope was, I'm just trying to find maybe a middle ground here. If you know, Duncan's interest is keeping challenges and existing together, if benefits might come first, or I don't know, Len.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that that makes the most sense. It just honestly, I'm not wedded to it. It's not something that is killing me right now, but it just struck me as kind of setting up the report as starting off with what are the benefits of hydropower, then going into the existing environment, and then the challenges struck me as a more natural read. But again, it's not something that's I'm gonna lose sleep over.
Len,
Yeah.
I agree with that. Sorry to jump in. I agree with that. And that's kind of, I think, how I structured it in the executive summary. That flow made sense to me.
Yeah, that does make sense. And obviously goes right to the charge to the task force to have benefits lead. I guess it fits that too.
Right, so Roman numeral 2 would be existing, Roman numeral 3 would be benefits, Roman numeral 4 will be challenges, right? Existing, benefits, challenges.
I think benefits first and then existing and then challenges. If I'm,
Oh, benefits way to the top. Okay.
yeah.
Benefits, Roman numeral 2. Existing, Roman numeral 3. Challenges, Roman numeral 4. Sound good?
This is Steve Cadwalader from Pura. I'm wondering if we want that to be net benefits, because it seems like we have this section at the end that's going to say, but there's also these costs to hydropower. And I'm thinking maybe those two should be discussed together. And if the conclusion is they're net benefits, then we go through this process of figuring out how to keep hydropower viable. But it just seems like those two sections, the benefits and the costs, should be combined, or at least sequential in the report.
The benefits and what did you say, Steve? Costs? You
I
were
think he
asking
was
to combine two sections?
he was referring to the drawback section that
Yeah.
that the environmental subcommittee worked on. So essentially, when we put together the final report, you put benefits and drawbacks together back to back, which strikes me as it makes the most sense from just a placement perspective.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that, though. I wouldn't necessarily, to Steve's comment, call it net benefits, because that assumes that the benefits always outweigh the costs. That and as you know, that's not always the case. But I think if it's I like that suggestion that Len just made of having benefits and drawbacks back to back.
Back to back meaning one right after the other in our
Yeah.
outline. Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So what would you like to have first in the list? Drawbacks or benefits? I really don't care.
I think benefits.
All right. So benefits, Roman numeral 2, drawbacks, Roman numeral 3, existing, Roman numeral 4, challenges, Roman numeral 5. All right. Consider it done. All
Yeah,
right.
and
Next.
I think that is good flow, and actually it leads to the policy considerations as being a way to address those challenges. So it kind of does all fit that way. But okay, so I had asked a question here with under significant regulatory obligations and costs. It makes a pretty bold statement. Hydropower is the second most heavily regulated industry in the US next to nuclear. And I just said that, with a statement like that, we should definitely give a citation.
I'm guilty for that, and it's just hearsay that I've heard. I'll look for a citation on it. If I can't find any citation, we can take it out. How's that?
Okay.
A DB citation, non-nuclear versus hydro. Okay. All right.
All right. We'll keep going here. And it looks like there's some text maybe that, I don't know, the red text, is that text that you had inserted, Duncan?
The which wording here?
Like unless continuously operating since,
Yeah, I think I did put that in. And again,
okay.
yep.
Yeah, that may have been from an earlier version that got put in here, and we may just need to change that to black text. But I think everyone's going to have another opportunity, I'm sure, to just kind of go through it and catch little things like that.
What I've heard also here say is that even those projects that have been continuously operating since prior to 1935, maybe they can get by without a FERC license, maybe not, because also somewhere it says if you affect interstate commerce, you have to get a FERC license. Well, they're saying, hey, I don't care if you've been operating since 1935 continuously, you are affecting interstate commerce. Therefore, you got to get a license. So I think there's some pressure, and maybe Len knows better than me about these operating.
Duncan, we own hydros that are older than that are subject to FERC regulation and license requirements. So that statement is not accurate to my understanding. I would probably remove that or edit that.
All right, so you've been continuously operating since 1935, and you say subject to FERC. What do you mean? Do you mean you have to get a license or an exemption, or what do you mean subject to?
So we have FERC licenses for several hydros that are older than that. So I'm not aware of that exemption, essentially.
Yeah, it's not an exemption. It's just you don't have to get an exemption or a license, from what I understand.
Right, but
do you have any?
the way it's framed suggests that there's an exemption from FERC regulation, which is not true in many or all cases. So I would just remove reference to that.
All right.
Okay, so I'm just going to put a note here that this needs to be fact checked, but Alicia has a hand up.
Alicia, yes. Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Eric. I would suggest the sentence that says the FERC process protects local quality and so on. I would suggest changing that language to the FERC process includes reviews intended to protect.
I concur.
Yeah, and I would just say, that might be, again, rather than spend too much time wordsmithing today, that might be right after the meeting going in, Alicia, if you want to make that suggestion.
Sure, I apologize. I was looking at the document that was in the other folder prior to this.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why they were in two different folders.
Duncan put a note at the top to try to clarify that, but I know that was definitely confusing.
Yeah, and I also put a note on the email I sent to everybody with my outline that shows everybody how to go to SharePoint. Yeah, sorry, there were two. If somebody knows how to erase that defunct one, please do. And let's just go with this one. This is the one that has Laura's comments on, and this is one I've made the master. And I've taken everything that was on the other one and I put it into this one, by the way.
So
right, good.
The correct one's in the general folder, not in the chapters folder, right?
Okay, I'll at least remove the one that's in the chapters folder to an archive folder, so folks don't look at that one. And then once we're done editing, I can move it into that chapter.
Thank you, Mariana.
Thank you, Mariana.
Yeah, that outdated one is in documents, comma, report sections, comma, hydro study 2, ... Anyway, that was a good catch there, Alicia, on that. I like your wording better. Includes reviews of. All right. Okay, next.
So I'm going past some of these where I know there were some issues that we'll probably want to resolve, not in this meeting.
Well, can we still go through them?
I mean, I don't know what the point is of going through them without Laura here, honestly, but
Yeah,
again, that's my personal feeling. Let's go through it once all together to be able to make decisions rather than, because if we go through it now, we're just gonna have to do it again.
oh, okay.
So I'm just going down to see if there are other, there's suggestions on synchronous generators versus certain hydropower generators. Reserve capacity and storage. Okay, and I know that there are different feelings about peak shaving, whether that's a good thing, but okay. Yeah, and these are also ones where I think Laura had, just looking at the comments.
Mm-hmm.
Photo. Okay, oh, sorry. Okay, and John is also not here, but yeah, whether we say 5,000 or 4,800. I've seen both, but we should be consistent. All right, so there's a question here that Len, you may be able to answer, that John Petrillo had asked in the section of recreational opportunities. I don't know if you can't see the document. Do we still have Len on? Not seeing Len in our, we may have lost him. So let's move on.
Hmm.
All right, so Duncan, you had proposed to omit a section here using the most recently published last resort energy rate from Eversource.
Right, and I think Len said okay to
Okay.
omitting it.
Okay, Len, looks like Len is back on. So Len, I don't know if you can, are you in good ability to communicate?
Yes, I'm sorry, I dropped
Okay.
off.
All right, yeah, sorry.
Train, so.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I think right before you.
Up here.
Right here.
As the conductor comes through, there was a note from John Petrillo, Len, about asking whether you had some Connecticut specific data for any of the Housatonic sites, rather than maybe some other suggestions from a medium-sized hydro site in Wisconsin that was put forward as kind of an example. I don't know if there's anything, Len, any thoughts that you had on that?
Unfortunately, I don't have any specific numbers, but I can certainly go back to my team again and just see if there's something better than using something out of Wisconsin. But obviously, I think the general gist is that there's a substantial impact on recreation, and that these things do have benefits that are not necessarily as easily quantifiable as as just a strict energy accounting.
Okay, so I just put a note that you'll look into that further, Len. Thank you. All right, and so back to Duncan, you had proposed this omission.
Right, and I think, scroll down, did Len say yay to that?
I don't see a response to that.
You okay with omitting that paragraph, Len?
I may not be able to see it.
Oh, yeah. You with us, Len?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm actually I'm reading through this part now. I can't recall having an opinion on it one way or another. But yeah, if you want to pull that out, I don't think it's going to be a problem.
All right, let's pull it out right now if we can. Please. Very good.
What
Okay.
section? Okay. keep going through here. And of course, if anyone else has comments either overall on the chapter or on anything that we've gone through, don't hesitate. All right, looks like that might be this chapter as far as we can take it today.
Yes, very good. So that takes care of the section called existing environment, takes care of challenges, takes care of benefits. So the next thing on our agenda, and what's on the agenda, I'm following it verbatim, is introduction. Now, introduction, we haven't done a serious look at that. I threw in a very general paragraph there in my green that you saw on that outline that I gave in my email. But if we need to jazz that up, let's do that. I mean, mine just simply says hydro is a proven reliable renewable resource. However, in Connecticut, it's not getting proper attention to maximize its energy contribution while adhering to current environmental standards. Further study of Connecticut hydropower is warranted. And that's all I said.
Where is that, Duncan? Is that up in the SharePoint?
No, it's not on SharePoint. It's on that outline that I provided in my email
Oh,
that I sent to
okay.
everybody. The
Got
email
it.
where I provided it in the body of the email, I also provided it as an attachment.
Got it.
But I just threw that out there. Please provide comments or provide something new or what have you for an intro if anybody wants to. It's kind of minimal, you know.
Duncan, are we making a distinction between intro and executive summary, which Mariana had at least done a draft of?
We are. If we want to get rid of intro, that's fine with me. Executive summary, Mariana is taking the lead on that. Thank you, Mariana. I haven't looked at that yet, but you know, if you want to just omit introduction, that's fine.
I think we can add, oh, sorry, Len, were you going to jump in? Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to add, it may make sense to include in an intro, just mention our charge specifically from the legislature and just go in that simply, and then go right into the rest of the meeting document.
I agree.
Yeah, a little history on how this hydro task study group came about and the bill and everything. I can add that.
That's in the executive summary, though.
Oh,
So
yeah,
I don't know that we need a separate intro and executive summary, honestly. And I don't know if Steve, you're kind of suggesting that you would be comfortable if those got put together, but I think
I just combine them, Eric. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
all right, agreed. Let's get rid of introduction here and just go with executive summary, which happens to be the next item to look at here, according to our agenda. Can you please pull that up, Eric?
Sure, I'm happy to, unless you'd rather be the sharer, Mariana.
Yeah, I think it makes sense for me to be the sharer just because
Okay.
in addition to
Sure.
having it up, I wrote it.
Good.
And I've made a couple of edits as we've been speaking. Okay. So here's the executive summary, which set of introduction, I just provided the background that we all talked about now in terms of introducing the legislatively mandated task force and the mandate there. I changed the flow to, I think, match what we've decided on, which is benefits of hydro, then drawbacks and environmental impacts, and then existing environment and challenges. I know I sent this today, so understand if not everybody has had a chance to review. And I'll let you all do that at your own time and let me know if there's anything to add. By the way, I am sharing my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. So here, in terms of drawbacks and environmental impacts of hydropower, Alicia had a good comment about ecosystems and watershed, which she's right, it doesn't make sense. I think that was me being quick, so added ecosystem services and watershed health. And then I think the other important comments, Eric, came from you in terms of considerations instead of recommendations. Thank you for that. And most importantly, this comment with regards to And I think this brings up a very important question about how we're going to manage the considerations and what the positions are going to be of the different folks that are involved here. So I don't know, Eric, if you want to
Sure.
elaborate on that.
Yeah, well, I think from the very beginning, when we had that first discussion about, should this task force report include recommendations or considerations, it was because we knew that there were going to be difficulties of, certain participants in the task force, especially state agencies that it might have, potential regulatory issues in areas or administrative issues that might make it difficult for us to take a particular position. And I know that, Pura has certainly spoken to this, and I've mentioned this, and any of the agencies involved have, a legislative process that we typically go through, which is not while a legislative session is happening, and it's really hard for folks to at this stage take a quote unquote position. So I just thought it was important to both at the beginning of the policy considerations chapter and in the executive summary make some statement that makes it clear that when these considerations are included in the task force report, that doesn't mean that they are, necessarily quote unquote endorsed by all of the participants, in particular the state agencies that aren't taking a position, but we include all of these as policy considerations because they have been thoughtfully put forward, and I think that what you had put in at the beginning of that section, Mariana, is accurate to say that like those three elements, generally supporting hydropower that's meeting state and federal requirements, including blah, 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 limiting hydropower to existing dams, and don't incentivize hydropower projects, on dams identified as candidates for removal. I think that was a consistent theme across, all of the different proposals that we looked at, and I think that's very accurate. I just wanted to make sure though that, and I could say that, whereas, and I've said this before, whereas, I think DEEP would be very comfortable in, including, all of the policy considerations that we've discussed in this document. We're not as comfortable saying that, and I don't think we could say that we endorse them. Some of that's going to be happening in the legislative process right now. And I would say I don't want to take these good ideas out of the report, but just again, acknowledge the constraints that we have.
Understood.
Very
Eric,
good.
do you want to maybe include that language that I feel like you have in your head in the text and just propose it in terms of how you want to play that out? And I think it doesn't mean that this needs to be eliminated, just maybe reworked or a couple of sentences added. So,
Yeah.
Or if it does need to be reworked, go ahead. But I think it would be great for you to add it because I feel like you know what you want to say.
Yeah, sure. I will try to propose something by Monday's meeting that kind of captures that sentiment, and we might still noodle with it somewhat, but yeah, I'm glad to.
Sounds good. Okay, and then we have the policy considerations and a brief summary of each of them and some conclusions, which we can decide if we want to keep or not, and if we want to add that also to the conclusions page. Duncan?
Yes, very good. First of all, thanks a bunch for doing this, Mariana. I haven't looked at it all, but it looks great. Can you scroll up a little bit? That word watershed, I agree, doesn't seem to be the right word. I mean, what I learned is that a watershed, there's various definitions, but to me, the watershed is that drainage area above the point in the river that contributes to the flow in the river. So, I mean, hydro doesn't really have an impact on that watershed area way up there. But maybe a better word would just be replace watershed with river. But looks like, Alicia, you're going to be looking at that. So that sounds good. Down below under policy considerations, number 1, maybe again, change the word proposing to task force is putting forth considerations or something like that. You see number 1, DEP solicitation.
Mariana, can you make the font just a little bit bigger?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
sorry.
For us old people.
No, I know that
Alright.
once I have a huge screen, so I see good, but I know once you share your screen, that doesn't necessarily come along. Sorry. Duncan, you were saying here that instead of proposed policy considerations, you would like the language to say something along the lines of has put forward.
Oh, I
Forward.
see. It's got the word considerations in there, so maybe that neutralizes it good for you. I know that's been a concern of yours, Eric, that we don't say we're proposing these things. So they are just proposed policy considerations. So the next one down, number 1D, solicitation of hydropower in bold there. Task force is proposing legislative mandated procurement. I don't know, it's up to you. I don't care if you want to maybe lighten that up, that your word is putting forth considerations or proposing considerations. Get your word considerations in there.
Yeah, I appreciate your sensitivity to that, Duncan. That's just what I'm trying to be really careful with.
Sure.
I appreciate that, Duncan. I'll, as you see, I've put a note to try to work on that language, and hopefully Eric and others, if you see that there's a better way to do so, please.
Yeah, get a number 2
Edit
there, the
away.
proposed program. Okay. Number 2, standard service tariff modeled after a similar policy in Rhode Island. The proposed program.
Yeah, I'll do that in all of the
Okay.
proposals. I'm sure there's more than one.
Yeah, good.
I think it's in all of them, so good catch.
Mhm.
Anything else on the executive summary that we need to discuss now? Otherwise, my suggestion would be that we use time for the other items, and obviously folks can review this after the meeting. I know it was sent only short time before the meeting, but did want to put it out there.
Right at the end,
I think it looks great.
you have a section called conclusions at the end there. All right. So that's still your executive summary, or that's the conclusions section, VII?
This is for the executive summary, and we can
Fine.
decide whether we want to replicate that in our conclusions, take some of it, add other conclusions, eliminate our conclusions from our report, and maybe it's just the considerations are basically our conclusion. So
Mhm.
I leave that up to the group to discuss.
This looks like a repeat of the beginning of. I think less reading for legislators is always better.
What do others feel about striking this?
Well, we still have to work on our conclusion section, so maybe we can take some of those words and make it into our conclusion section, which is the next item to talk about, and that's another quickly done thing by Duncan that's in that outline I sent in the email that's in the green font.
Yeah, before we jump to that, Len, I feel like you want to jump in?
Yeah, and I apologize for the noise behind me, but I actually think it would be helpful to keep this in here. It just sums it up, quickly and succinctly. It's not too long, but it's something I'm going to sleep over on as well. So
Yeah,
Go ahead, Eric.
I was just going to agree with Len. I think, you know, the part of the point of the executive summary is to summarize all the different elements of the report. And if there is going to be a conclusion, I mean, again, I don't know if the actual conclusion chapter is going to be, you know, a longer chapter, or if it's going to be very similar to this. But if this is a true summary of the conclusion, I think it's fine to keep it right up front to make it easy for a reader to get all the different elements. I might, you know, suggest some additional language in our summary of the conclusions or here, but I like it all up front in the executive summary.
Okay, so sounds like there's more interest in leaving these couple of sentences here. And understand that maybe those will have changes as folks review. So maybe let's leave it for now. And then if others, Alicia, like you feel strongly about removing it, we can discuss them at our next call.
Not at all.
You want to bring us home, Duncan?
Sure, right. The next item on the agenda is conclusion. That's section VII. I mean, I did a really haphazard attempt at this, you know, kind of like that introduction that I tried. So it's not in front of us. It's in the email I sent everybody. If anybody wants to take a stab at it, please do. I mean, I really like the one here in this executive summary section, but it doesn't cover everything. You know, mine just says hydro facilities in Connecticut are undergoing economic hardship due to the absence of equitable energy purchase rates, the restrictions of class 1 qualification, the cost of FERC licensing, and the cost of installing and operating environmental enhancements. Hydro facilities in Connecticut that are environmentally compliant should be offered class 1 designation and equitable energy rates. I really don't get into, you know, what we're doing with our study, so it needs more talk about that, I believe, for it to be a good conclusion. Is there anybody that would like to take a stab at that and do better with our conclusion section?
Looks like
Not all at
Alicia.
once now. Well, not all at once now.
It looks like Alicia has a hand up, maybe a thought on this.
Oh,
I feel it might be best if we put that conclusion up into the chapters folder. And we all have an opportunity to look at it in SharePoint before we come to any conclusions on the conclusion.
very good. Okay, I agree. So, Mariana, can you put something in there to just to start something rolling with conclusions so that everybody can see it in SharePoint and then comment and work on it?
Sure, you mean just a document with conclusions with that conclusion that we have from the executive summary? Is that what you have in mind?
It'll be a new document
Right.
called VII conclusions. And I mean, you can copy and paste my feeble wordage
Okay.
that I have there, and then people can work. At least that's something to start with and hack away at it. Right. All right, good. Thank you for that. So moving along, the next one is getting into the policy considerations, 4 of them. So the first one is policy considerations, rate compensation. So can somebody please pull that up? It's at SharePoint documents, comma, policy considerations, comma, and then Connecticut last resort is what it's got a title for right now.
And I apologize, but I need to drop in a few minutes and for another meeting that I've just been asked to attend. But I think on these also, Duncan, I think it'd be good to have Laura as part of the conversation to go, you know, right through them once and be able to feel like, okay, we've incorporated all the thoughts on these, because we have gone through all of these, a few times already, but I really, if we only have the time to do it one more time, let's do it as the full group.
Okay,
I second that.
right. Mariana, I'm sorry, what was that?
I said I second that. I think it makes sense to have the entire group review those. I think those are important to be able to have
Okay,
everybody on there to do it one more time. Len, are you raising your hand?
I apologize jumping in kind of a little off topic, but is there anybody who definitely can't make on Monday meeting?
okay, well, we just went through existing and benefits and others, and we did help to tune them
Duncan,
up. But
sorry to interrupt you, but I think what Len was trying to say is if anybody cannot be there on Monday, I know I can be there. Anybody here that can't be here? I guess Laura's the only one we wouldn't know, and John. But otherwise,
I can join, but I will likely have to jump early. I have 2 meetings scheduled for the same time, but I will do my best to be on for the first part at least.
Laura can be there on Monday. She did tell me that.
all right, well, we'll go through these policy considerations on Monday then. And that brings us up to the last item, which I actually added to the agenda because it wasn't there, is the drawbacks and impacts section that we can look at. And again, Laura isn't here. Laura and Alicia are basically the authors of that, right? With some help like from Eric as well as that's the environment.
Well, we
subcommittee.
haven't had a chance to work on that yet, and now that we've gone through some of the others as a group, I think we can now move forward on doing some of that editing. So I don't think it makes any sense for us to go through it now.
All right, so what you mean is it's been gone through, it's got comments there, and you're ready to go through and just clean it up on your own as a subcommittee? Is that what you mean?
Well, there were some sections that had to be reworked based on other in the context of the other sections. So that hasn't been done yet.
Right. Okay, let me just look at something here. Well, maybe it might be the only problem that CSPPA has a hard time with is Connecticut ratepayers or taxpayers should only contribute towards investments in environmental improvements and not to sustain hydro that cannot be cost effective without subsidization. So I was hoping that maybe we can just omit that last paragraph, that last sentence.
We had talked about that at the last meeting that, Alicia and Laura were going to, take a look at that and see how it might be modified or removed. So I guess that's the next step for them. But yeah, I think that it's well understood that was, a language of concern.
Good. So,
well, I mean, we can modify it, but we should not be propping up hydro that should not be propped up. And we will take a stand on that.
That's fine. And we also have the appendix to this study that is, the paper by Laura and then the paper by Duncan. And those provide our specific opinions on things, whereas the report here is kind of the opinion of all of us, right? But hopefully you can come up with wording for this that is good and that is a little bit softer than what it is right now. And have that ready for a meeting on Monday, please.
Are you going to change some of the language in your report and correct the data that is not correct in your report then?
But It's all of our reports. So I mean, I think everyone wants to make sure that what's in it is accurate, and I think that all has to be done. But I think just a suggestion here, and Len may want to speak to this too. You know, to the extent that if there are policy quote unquote positions that people want to take related to the report, it probably should be done in the policy consideration section. And you know, not in individual chapters. So I think there are some things that we may want to modify so that they are, you know, more broadly embraced by, you know, all the members of the task force. So that's just the context I would suggest that we should all keep in mind as we head towards the finish here. But Len, you might have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, again, I apologize for the noise, but I think the crux of the issue that we have to kind of work through, definitely on Monday, is getting through this issue I think that we had brought up earlier, which is primarily focuses on new undeveloped versus existing sites and how we address those in the report itself. I think that was a big sticking point last time. In addition to some of the harder language, I think that it was both in the street subcommittee report and in the environmental subcommittee report. So getting through those issues.
I'm sorry, Len. I don't know if others are also having a hard time, but I'm getting like every other word, and I feel like what you're saying is really important.
I think,
So maybe
Mariana,
we can.
I think what he
wait.
was saying, and Len, maybe you can say yes or no to this, but I think what he was saying is the last time we discussed the consideration of new versus unpowered dams and how we wanted to sort of address that in the context of the report. That was a big part of last week's discussion. And then also, you know, addressing certain language within the industry and environmental subcommittee reports as well. So like what was just being discussed in relation to the environmental impacts section. So Len, yes or no on that? Did we get that right?
Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, very good. I think we're getting near the end of our agenda here. Let me just look and double check all that. All right. So the next section is just, again, availability of public comment. If there's anybody out there in the public that would like to talk, please say so now. If not, then the announcement and time of the next meeting is Monday at 3 o'clock. And Len cannot make it, right? I'm not sure about John. I'll check with him.
No, I can. I will be there. I may be off camera, but I will be there.
Okay, good. And it's good to hear that Laura will be there and Alicia also. And it's my goal to finalize all of our documents on Monday so that we can then put everything together for submittal soon after. So that'd be great. Just one quick question on the appendix. You know, remember we were talking about, oh, do we use Duncan's study? No. And a good idea of Eric, we can attach things like that to the appendix. So I assume that we're still doing that. And other than the Save the Sound paper, the CSPBA paper, what else would we be putting in there? Are there any other items that need to be going in the appendix? Anybody knows of?
I know you'd asked about a green bank paper. There's no need to do that. I think some of what had been prepared had just been sort of enlightened and to spark conversation.
Right. Yeah, that paper that you did early on, you've pretty much incorporated that in the body of the study, right? And
Yeah.
we talked about bios. What's that? Resumes? I don't know if we really need that. I don't care, you know. Okay.
I do think it makes sense for us to try to include at least a list of who was appointed and who was represented in the task force. I do think that is part of it. And I think we had talked about putting that in the appendix
Okay, sure. Just a list of the members of the task force and who they represent. That'd be great. Okay. All right, everybody. Well, thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? All right. If not, I bid you a farewell and have a good weekend. And thank you very much and see you Monday.
Have a nice weekend, everyone.
Thanks all.
Thank
Thanks
you
for running the
all.
show, Duncan.
Yeah, Duncan, thank you for keeping us steady, not just in today's meeting.
You know what I got here? I didn't use it, but I got a gavel that I was going to use. But luckily we didn't use it, so we're good. All right, have a good weekend.
Good hammer.